I'm attempting to complete every single GameCube game, and I'm using a random number generator to pick the next game. Last episode, we got to put the gloves on and fight some legends in Knockout Kings 2003, and in this episode, we're going to try and survive a zombie invasion with the wonderful Leon Kennedy in Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 was released on January 11th, 2005, and was developed and published by Capcom. I honestly fell in love with the game during my first playthrough of it. Before we get started, make sure to like this video because it helps out the channel, and subscribe if you're new so you don't miss any of the future games. Without further ado, this is my experience with Resident Evil 4. In Resident Evil 4, we're going to go through the story mode to consider this one complete. I'm not going to play through the extra stuff after we finish the game because it's just an add-on that I don't think is important to the main story. I'm going to try something new for this game and split it into two parts because there is a lot that takes place and I don't want to skip too much of what is going on. So we're going to go about halfway through the game in part 1 and finish the game in part 2. Resident Evil 4 opens with a cutscene that explains what is happening in the world. To sum it up, it talks about a virus that was created by an organization known as Umbrella that was released into the world that caused zombies, and now there are mutations to that virus causing some crazy stuff to happen. We also learn that the president's daughter has been kidnapped and a special agent is getting sent to rescue her. This is where we come into play. When the actual game opens up, we get a cutscene where we meet our main character, the one we're going to go through the game as, Leon Kennedy. Leon is sarcastic, and he's pretty good at what he does, so he's a bit arrogant as well. We're riding in a car with two cops that are taking us to a village that has reports that the president's daughter is being held captive at. Our mission is to go into the village, rescue her, and then leave. If only it was that simple. We arrive right outside of the village, and the two cops tell us they can't take us any further into the village. They don't mention why they can't, but we don't question it and head in on foot. During our adventure, we are in constant contact with another agent that goes by Hunnigan that tells us what we need to do, but doesn't really help us in figuring out how we're supposed to do that. Leon also makes it a point to hit on her like Snake did in Metal Gear Solid. If you haven't already, make sure to check that game out as well. We also find out that the president's daughter's name is Ashley, so when I refer to her in the future, that's who I'm talking about. Once we get out of this dialogue, we get to play as Leon finally. If you don't know what Resident Evil is, it's a third-person survival game that requires us to save our ammo and healing items to make sure we can survive during the whole game. The aiming in this game has us using red lights, and it's something I had to get used to at the beginning, so if you think I suck early on, I did. Thanks for pointing that out, it really helped my self-esteem. Anyways, we arrive at this house outside the main village, and a man goes inside and closes the door. So we decide that we're going to go inside without being invited to try and get some information. Leon has really bad manners. When playing the game, there are a bunch of things we can interact with. Some will be items we can use, and others will give us information about the world, or are completely pointless. When we go to the back of the house, we get a cutscene where Leon asks if the man has seen Ashley, and he shows her a picture of her. The man doesn't have a normal reaction and decides to grab an axe and try to kill us. We dodge out of the way and get thrown back into the gameplay where we get to kill our first enemy of the game. He's not too hard to take down, but we just have to aim and shoot without getting hit with the axe. At the bottom right of the screen, it shows us how many bullets are in our gun, and the green ring around is our health. Right now we can't have a full ring, but there are items that allow you to increase your overall health later on in the game. After we kill the guy in the house, a truck starts and a bunch of other villagers are now coming to the house to kill us, and we have to figure out a way to escape. We find some handgun ammo and decide that jumping out of the second story window is the way to go. We dive outside and are immediately met with a bunch of villagers trying to kill us. After killing all the villagers, we can move into the village, but before that I want to show that some of the villagers drop gold and items that we can use later in the game to buy items using the gold and to upgrade our weapons. But I'll get into that a little later on. For now, let's move the story along. After finding the gold, we break some boxes that hold items such as ammo and gold, but also green, red, and yellow herbs. These can be used to heal us when we take too much damage. This is a classic Resident Evil stuff, and I really like it. In specific areas on the map, you'll find typewriters that allow you to save the game. Since this is a survival horror game, we can't just save anywhere, so we have to plan out what we're going to do based on the last save we have. After we're done saving the game, we decide to save a dog that is caught in a bear trap, which promptly runs away. If you know, you know, but I'm not going to say anything about it now. We found this shed that just had some woman hanging in it. I don't think that's how you use a pitchfork, but carry on. Finally, we find the gates that lead us into the village. A slow-moving beginning, but now we're heading into some action. Once inside, we get another cutscene that has us looking at what's going on in the village. And the first thing we find is one of the cops with a hook shoved through his chest, burning over a fire. Nice and toasty. Then we get to go into the village and try not to get spotted, or at first that's what I thought I was supposed to do. But after alerting everyone in the area, we have to run around, stay alive, and kill as many villagers as we can. However, I decided to go into this building and back out, and was met with a man swinging a chainsaw around. And he immediately cut off my head. Look how brutal this was. I had no chance to react to this. When you die in this game, it tells you that you're dead, and lets you start from the previous checkpoint in some areas. I don't really know how this is determined, but we start at the entrance of the main village again, instead of the last save point. I decided that the second time around I would go inside the buildings and let them line up as they enter the building. This worked pretty well until this woman snuck up on me through the window behind me. I will say that the AI in this game is pretty good at trying to push you out of hiding from in a corner, at least for the most part. After running around and killing as many villagers as possible, we finally get this cutscene that a bell starts ringing and everyone decides to drop their weapons and head into this church with a strange emblem on the door. I don't really know what it means, but they leave us alone finally. The door is locked after the cutscene, so we can't follow them, but it gives us a chance to look around the area freely without people trying to kill us. At the end of the cutscene, it shows a little title card saying Resident Evil, so that was like the opening of the game. It's pretty good if I say so myself. Anyways, while looking around the houses, we're able to find some ammo, healing items, and a second weapon. The shotgun. This would have been helpful with all those people, but I didn't know where it was located. The shotgun will become one of my favorite weapons in the game because it's so good with crowd control. Not only does it hurt a bunch of people with its spray, but it also knocks them down, which allows for us to escape in a tight spot. In the next area, there are these blue medallions hanging around in different areas, and when we break them, it tells us that there are 15 total. At this point in the game, I didn't know what they were for, but I'm going to tell you guys now. Once we collect 10 of them, the merchant in the game will give us a free gun. So I decided that I would destroy them all because that's just how I play games, which ended up working in my favor. We pop this guy's head off and move on. I wanted to show our inventory system in this game. We can't describe everything because we don't have room. We have a weapon case and it has limited spots, so it helps to organize everything in it so that we can get the most room available. Early on it doesn't matter that much, but it's very important later on in the game, especially with healing items and ammo. You can also combine green, yellow, and red herbs to make better healing items, and if you combine all three, then they increase your overall amount of health. Moving into the next area, we get our first quick time event, where we have to hit the buttons at the right time so we don't die. The first one is a scene out of Indiana Jones, and we're getting chased by a boulder. My first time doing it, I didn't know it was going to ask for buttons at the end, and I ended up getting hit by the boulder and dying. I'm amazing at this game. We enter this house and find this big wardrobe that sounds like something's inside, so we decide to open it up and a man falls out that is tied up. We don't know who he is, so we're caught off guard by this. Leon decides to untie him because Leon is a nice guy. While all this is happening, this mammoth of a man comes in and stares us down. So we decide to run up and kick him in the stomach, which of course doesn't do anything, and he grabs our legs and tosses us into our new friend and into the wardrobe that then breaks and falls on us. This man is huge, and instead of using our gun, we decided that kicking was the best option for some reason. At the end of certain parts in the game, we get end of chapter scenes. This allows us to save the game and move to the next chapter, or the next part of the chapter. This also shows us our hit ratio, how many enemies we killed, and how many times we died. I only died twice, which is pretty good since this is my first time playing this game. This is how we can figure out our progress in the game as well. So that was the end of Chapter 1 Part 1, and then Chapter 1 Part 2 opens with a cutscene showing Leon getting something injected in his neck. It's some purple vial and doesn't look like something you would want to get injected with. We also see a man in a purple cloak hanging out, and he's just holding a staff. He doesn't really do much, he's just kind of there. This man will be important later, but for right now we're going to leave it at that. Then we get another cutscene where we're tied to our new friend in an abandoned building. Another quick time event happens, and we have to time it to get cut apart from our friend. Then we use our foot to flip over this villager that lands and breaks his neck and dies. Then our friend runs away as well. Time to meet the best character in the whole game, the Merchant. This man is a legend and has some of the best dialogue in the game, with such classics as "What you buyin'" and "What you sellin'." He seems normal enough and is willing to sell us items. In his menu, we can upgrade our weapons using the gold we collect along the way. Upgrading the weapons is much needed because this game will start to get difficult without doing it. We decide to upgrade our handgun, and he even sells a larger weapon case that will let us carry more items. Another super important thing in the game. Once we're done upgrading our weapons, we move into this area that is on the edge of like a mountain or a valley or something, and we can shoot people and have them fall down, saving us a bunch of ammo. In this game, if the villagers grab a hold of you, you have to shake the control stick back and forth to get loose from their grip. You will lose health either way, but the longer they grab you, the more health they take. I also discovered that I could shoot their weapons out of their hands here, which is nice when they're using explosives and throwing axe. We collect these two halves of an emblem and are able to put them back together to unlock the door to leave the area. Resident Evil is known for parts of the game that involve puzzles, and we stumble across our first one in the next area. This puzzle has us moving the emblem in the middle up, down, left, and right to match the emblem that is on the door to unlock it. It's super easy to do, but I thought I would point it out because there are puzzles throughout the game. Not all of them are required, but it's another aspect to the gameplay that makes the game fun. We get another cutscene where the big man from before grabs us by our neck in the hallway and looks deeply into our eyes and decides to put us down. It seems like he doesn't want us to follow him into the room, but I decided that I was going to do it anyways. Since we follow him, we end up in another situation where it looks like he's going to kill us, but a woman appears in the window and shoots at him, causing him to bull rush at her, and he falls out of the window. One of the craziest cutscenes that gave us no information, just more questions. We're able to survive, I guess, and we move on in the game. That's also the end of Chapter 1 Part 2, which we didn't die any in that section. Go us! After picking up the relic key for the church that we couldn't get into before, we head back to the church and unlock the door. Finally, we can find out where all these people were headed when they stopped trying to kill us. We ended up having enough gold to buy the medium-sized weapon case, and now we can hold more stuff. It was definitely needed because I was starting to run out of room for items. We finished destroying all the blue medallions and then head back to the merchant to get our free gun, which is called the Punisher. Just an upgraded version of the pistol, but because I've been upgrading our basic pistol, it ended up being better than this one. But I'm going to hang on to it for now. We get another boulder chase scene and clear out an area with endless villagers and wire traps to get down to the lake. When we get down to the lake, we get a cutscene that lets us watch two villagers on a boat throw a dead body into the water and then leave. We continue to watch as a massive fish comes out of the depths and eats the dead body. Is this their pet goldfish? Remember kids, never flush your goldfish down the toilet because they can and will turn into a massive man-eating fish. Leon, being the brave man that he is, decides to go down to the dock and get on a little boat to cross over the lake. Leon is incredibly brave or incredibly dumb. I'll let you decide that on your own. If you didn't guess it already, we get about halfway across the lake and the giant fish decides it wants to eat us too, knocking our boat around and causing our anchor to fall into the water, and it gets caught on the fish, causing the fish to drag us around the lake with it. This is the first boss fight of the game, and it's a good one. When the boss fight begins, we have to use harpoons and throw them at the fish. The fish will turn and swim at us, and if we don't hit him enough times, he'll knock us off our boat, and then we have to mash the A button to swim back to the boat before the fish can eat us. It's not a very difficult boss fight, but every time he hits us, it does damage, so we have to make sure that we have enough health. The less health you have, the slower we swim back to the boat. We continue this process over and over again until we do enough damage to kill the fish. I was knocked off my boat so many times in this fight that I was sure I was going to end up dying to this fish. I got lucky though and was able to kill the fish on my first try. Pro gamer. Once we kill the fish, we get this cutscene where the fish flops around in the water and eventually dies. This is an iconic boss fight and was the only one I knew about before playing through this game. They did a wonderful job in this one and I found it to be super fun. During the cutscene, the rope of the anchor gets wrapped around our leg and Leon has to cut the rope so that we don't get dragged in the water and drowned. Which we're able to do because Leon is so good at life. After all that fun, we finish making our way across the lake and end up in a new area of the village. But when we get to the shore, we have an attack from whatever was injected in our neck, causing us to feel extreme pain, and Leon stumbles into a building and passes out. That closes out Chapter 1, Part 3, and shows that we died 3 times in that part. We ended up dying in the area with the traps because there was endless people, and the traps do a ton of damage. That ends Chapter 1, and we're moving into Chapter 2, Part 1. This chapter opens with Leon still suffering from whatever was injected in our neck, and then shows us that we have these little bug things in our bloodstream that is causing us to have these reactions. They're burrowing their way into our nerves and into our brain. They look like something, but I'm not going to say it. Once we wake up, some time has passed, and we get a phone call asking us where we've been. Then we go outside to move into the new area. It's raining outside during this part, and it looks super good for the time period. Makes everything seem dark and scary. I just really like this. A lot has happened since we took our nap, and the first enemy we run into is a mutation. It's causing this crazy creature thing to come out of the villager's head. These things are super annoying and make the villagers much stronger. We have to focus on shooting it directly, and it will start swinging at us, doing massive damage. Once we get through all that, we end up in this waterworks puzzle that has us pulling levers to change the way the water flows from the waterfall, and this will give us access to a secret tunnel behind the waterfall. Not really a puzzle, but something different from the rest of the gameplay. Once we do this, however, we're attacked by a bunch of enemies. Remember how I said the shotgun was super important in this game? This is when I decided that it was an amazing weapon because I was able to clear out all the enemies with no problem because I could just keep them back. What a wonderful thing this was. We collect the round insignia at the end of the tunnel that opens another door and escape back to the beginning of this area on a little boat. We upgrade our weapons as much as we can with the merchant and head into the next big boss fight of the game. We go into this giant like fortress that is surrounded by logs, and the villagers close both of the exits to the area using these levers outside and open this massive door. And they're escorting a giant ogre thing using ropes. I'm assuming that their plan is to let it out on us. However, the ogre freaks out and starts attacking and killing all the villagers, and it sets itself free from the ropes. This is a really good cutscene and really builds up the boss that we're about to fight. This thing is massive and could do a bunch of damage to us quickly. Let's move into the boss fight now. The boss fight starts with us facing off against the ogre, and we basically need to unload on this thing. The boss fight is simple, but requires us to pay attention to his movements and his attacks. After shooting at him, he'll begin to charge at us, trying to grab a hold of us. If he runs into us, it knocks us down and does damage. If he grabs us, he'll pick us up, and we have to stab him in the hand until he lets us down. This also does damage to us. Every once in a while, he'll grab like a tree club and swing it at us, destroying the little huts in the area. And if we get hit by this, we basically die. It's super strong. When he swings the tree, we have to hit the buttons on the screen at the right time to dodge the attack and not take any damage. Not all that difficult, but I have slow reactions to hitting quick time events sometimes, and I get hit by the first one really quickly. After we do so much damage to the ogre, we get a cutscene that shows the dog that we saved at the beginning of the game jumping down into the pit to help us fight the ogre. This is what I was talking about at the beginning. If you decide not to help the dog, then he doesn't show up in this fight. It's pretty nice because the dog will distract the ogre from attacking us, and we can get some free shots on him, without worrying about him charging us. After doing some more damage, we get another cutscene where this giant mutation comes out of the ogre's back / neck area, and we have to focus our shots on that to kill it. This can be hard because you only have a limited amount of time because it will go back into its body, so skill is going to determine how long this boss fight lasts. After continuing this pattern for a while and having no health and very little ammo left, we're able to bring him down, and we get another cutscene where the ogre finally falls over and dies, after he looks like he's going to rage out even more. Once he falls to the ground, the gates somehow open back up. Is this the villagers being nice? Are they somehow tied to the ogre's vitals or something? I don't know how to explain how this would work. I don't understand. I wish this cutscene would have just had the ogre smash into the 2 gates when he was dying, breaking them, so it just made a little more sense. But I guess it is what it is. Anyways, the ogre drops 15,000 gold, and we're able to leave the area and head to this church at the top of the cemetery. We also went and bought the rifle, and on our way toward the church, we run into these mutated wolves that are crazy to deal with unless you have a good old-fashioned shotgun. Since they move so quickly, spraying with the shotgun is the best choice. We insert our newly found round insignia and are able to unlock the door to the church and get inside with hopes of finally finding Ashley. Once inside, we head upstairs and have to use a chandelier to get to the other side of the upstairs because of the locked doors, and we find ourselves another puzzle. This puzzle involves using 3 different lights to make the symbol on the wall. It has us moving red, blue, and green lights to match the pattern and unlock the door that is upstairs and locked. This puzzle isn't hard, just have to match the colors in the direction that would fit the symbol in the middle the best. It could take a bit, but honestly not that bad of a puzzle. Once the puzzle is solved, it raises the gates that were blocking our way, and we find a door that triggers a cutscene that has Ashley inside. We finally found her, but since she's scared, she's throwing stuff at us and telling us to leave her alone. This will begin some of the most annoying things about this game. Taking Ashley around with us is quite possibly one of the biggest vibe kills about Resident Evil 4. I understand it fits with the story, but she has terrible AI, and doing simple things turns super complicated because she's pretty helpless. Like going back down the ladder downstairs, we have to jump down, and then she jumps and we have to catch her. You're telling me she couldn't just climb down the ladder like we do? Come on now. Anyways, once we get down to the first floor again, we run into the man with the purple cloak, and he tells us that we can't leave, and we won't be taking Ashley because she's important to some bigger plan or something. He tells us about what they injected both of us with, and then we have limited time before it takes over our bodies completely. I don't know, he's annoying. At the end of the cutscene, he has 2 villagers shoot crossbows at us, and we have to dodge them and jump through a window into a secondary room of the church. It's funny how after he does that, he doesn't chase us or anything. He's just like, that's fine, we'll catch up with them later. I really can't tell if he's that confident or that dumb, but either way, it's nice to get out of the situation. This ends Chapter 2, Part 1, and we only died once in this part to the ogre boss fight. I'm also getting more accurate with my guns now, so that's a good thing. Chapter 2, Part 2 opens with a bunch of villagers in the cemetery waiting for us to come out so they can kill us. I think there's an easier way to do this by using the cart that has explosives on it, but I didn't notice it, so I ended up just killing everyone with my guns. I wanted to point out now that we have to watch Ashley's health too, and if she dies, we end up getting a game over as well. So it adds more to that whole Ashley making the game a bummer thing. After escaping from most of the villagers, we end up on this bridge that leads to a house that our friend is inside, and he lets us come inside. We begin talking, but all the villagers end up surrounding the house and try to break inside. This is one of the most difficult parts for me, and I ended up dying 5 times or so during this part because I would die or Ashley would die. It starts out pretty easy, and we can keep them from entering the house by killing them at the boarded up windows. But after the boards come off the windows, they can freely enter the house, and there will be a lot of them. Using the shotgun is a good choice here, but I don't have all that much ammo for it. So I was trying to save as much as possible. I did find out during this part that the flash grenades end up being one of the most helpful things in this part, because the mutated things that come out of the head of the villagers die immediately from them, and is helpful for not taking massive hits from the scythe swinging attack they have. Once we kill enough of them, we get another cutscene that shows all the villagers leaving, and it looks like the attack is done for now. This game gets crazy sometimes, but I think it adds to the danger that we're actually in. Our friend decides to leave after the battle, and it's back to just Leon and Ashley. That's the end of Chapter 2 Part 2, and I was right, I died 5 times in this section of the game, mainly from the house battle. But yet again, our hit ratio increased, so I'm thinking I'm starting to get better at the game. Chapter 2 Part 3 opens up with us going into this fortress area with a bunch of villagers, and we need to get to the other side, but we need to find a key to unlock the door to leave. The villagers attack us a lot during this part, but I found out that we can have Ashley hide in dumpsters during the actual fighting, so it actually makes it much easier not having to worry about her staying alive, and once we clear the area we can whistle and she'll get out of the dumpster and meet up with us, as long as she's physically able to. The hardest part of this area is that we have to jump down into this pit where 2 women with chainsaws are trying to kill us. It's because they can one-shot us that makes it hard, but using the shotgun I can clear the area, keeping them pretty far away from us. I also caught this man on fire, which I didn't know I could do during this section. So satisfying. Once we kill both of the women, we find that one of them is holding the key around her neck for the door to escape this area. It's called the camp key, and now we just have to get to the other side of the fortress thing. Once we get over there, however, a bunch of enemies attack us all at once. So I tell Ashley to get into the dumpster and begin taking out the enemies the best I can. I don't have any shotgun ammo at this point, so I was using grenades and the handgun, and it was actually pretty difficult without having something to clear the area easily. Once we clear out everyone, we whistle for Ashley, unlock the door, and then remove the wood blocking the way. And then we're able to leave the area. This takes us into an area with the merchant and a door that needs us to scan someone's eye to open it. So now we have to figure out what to do. I stumble upon this lift system. It reminds me of a ski lift, but with big platforms instead of seats. This has us riding down the lift as villagers are riding up throwing weapons at us, and on the side of the cliff throwing stuff at us as well. We have to shoot them and get them to fall off the lift to get down to the bottom. I love that every time we take out one of the villagers, Ashley does this little fist pump behind us. Look how awesome it is. She does it every single time. It makes me feel like she's really rooting for us. Yeah, Ashley, I am the best. Thanks for confirming that. After taking everyone out, we get to the bottom of the lift and come across a massive barn. We get a cutscene where we tell Ashley to go hide and we'll come get her after we're done exploring inside the barn. Are you ready for big boss fight number 3? We go inside the barn and look who decides to show up to the fun. It's the big man, the big cheese from before. He grabs us by the neck and he throws us into the rafters and proceeds to bend the handles to the exit so we can't even open the door. We have no way to escape from him now. It's time for us to do battle with this man once and for all. We decide to shoot a gas barrel to take him out. However, he has other plans and decides to mutate into an even bigger man with a stretched out spine. It sort of reminds me of like a jack-in-a-box, and then he grows spider legs out of his back. This is the craziest creature and one that puts up a good fight. Now let's go into the boss fight. The fight takes place in the burning barn, and we can either fight him on the ground level or climb up to the second floor area of the barn to fight him. Since he's big and awkward, it's a bit safer to be up top because he can only get us with one move, and if you're looking for it, you can hop down to avoid it. While this is happening, we just have to continue shooting him and doing damage. There are some items in the area, but not a huge amount, so we have to manage with what we have. He ends up knocking us off the second floor of the barn, and we almost die from this. This ends up being a really close call, but I ended up escaping and can heal myself before he finishes me off. Once we do so much damage to him, his spine and legs break off, and then we have to deal with his spider form. This is much harder because he can climb in the rafters of the barn, plus we can't just stay upstairs to avoid him. So now we basically go in a big circle of climbing upstairs and then jumping down, shooting him as much as we can during all this. After having no health at all and nothing left to heal myself with, We're able to land the final blow on him, and he finally dies. We did it. We killed the massive man that has been haunting my dreams for 2 chapters in this game. We get another cutscene that shows him dying and his eyeball falls out of his head. We solved our problem with the door to leave the village. We pick up the false eye and 30,000 gold and see that we can escape from the side of the barn. So we do, and we meet back up with Ashley. We take the lift back up to the door and use the eye to unlock it. What a way to unlock a door, by killing a man and stealing his eyeball. Anyways, once we get to the other side of the door, there are a bunch of villagers waiting for us. And then a 2-ton truck starts driving down the hill to kill us. All we have to do is shoot the driver so that he wrecks the truck and he doesn't kill us. The nice thing about this part is that he runs over all the other villagers so we don't have to kill them ourselves and we can save some ammo. Since that is taken care of, we head up the path and get another cutscene where a bunch of villagers are chasing us down. So we run across this drawbridge and begin to raise it up so that they can't reach us. There's a massive castle on the other side, and that's where we're going to spend a big portion of the rest of the game. Once the bridge is up, we're finally safe, and that ends Chapter 2, Part 3, and we can move into Chapter 3 of the game. We only died 5 times in that section, and I think it was mostly from the Chainsaw Girls, the lift, and the truck section, not the boss fight, surprisingly. We open heading towards the entrance to the castle. This area looks pretty run down, but I like that they've changed the environment in the game, and we're not just in the village the whole time. Once we get near the entrance, we get a cutscene showing the big doors to get inside, and then there are new enemies walking around. I'll get into them once we get a close-up of them, but I want to talk about the next part we have to deal with. When we head up these stairs, we get another cutscene that shows these new enemies shooting fireballs from a catapult that will kill us instantly if we get hit by them. So we're in some real danger right now. I decide to just run in and try my luck, and Ashley gets hit by one of the fireballs and ends up dying right away. So I need to have her wait while I move around the area. The goal in this section is to shoot the gas barrels next to the catapult so it explodes and destroys the catapult. There are 3 of them around the area, and we have to move to different areas to get a clean shot on them. So that's what we're going to do. We get our first one, no problem. Then move on to the next one and have to line up the shot a bit better and take the one out with no problem. While doing this, enemies will attack us, so we have to be aware of what is going on around us. I was able to pull out some Call of Duty skills and get 2 head pops with 1 bullet. This felt so nice, better than anything I've done so far in this game. I want to do this all the time, but I don't think this happens ever again for me during this playthrough. We're finally able to get the last one, and then we're able to operate some cranks and raise up a cannon from the lower levels of the castle entrance and destroy the big doors to the entrance of the castle, allowing us to finally get inside. Hunnigan calls us, and in the middle of her telling us what she wants us to do, our phone system gets hacked. But I'm going to wait to tell you who is behind it until we meet them in person. Let's talk about the new enemies. Inside the castle, the new enemies wear either black cloaks or red cloaks and are who is going to attack us during this section. They have more health, so they take more shots unless you upgrade your weapons, and they move a bit quicker as well. I really like the design of these enemies, and some of them are wearing masks for some reason. This one even looks like a rejected Darth Maul. It's like he went in for the part, but he just wasn't red enough to get the part for Star Wars. I feel pretty sad for him. The more people we kill, the more people get sent at us. So this part really just throws stuff at us. Once we move a little further into the area, we get another cutscene where Luis catches up with us. He always finds his way to us somehow. We tell him about how we both got injected with the virus, and he tells us that he'll come find us again once he goes and gets the vaccine for it or something. That's all that really happens here, but Ashley offers to go with him, and he's like, no, I'm good, you can just stay here with Leon. He's so much stronger and better at protecting you. Louise, you're sly at getting rid of Ashley. After searching around for a bit and killing some enemies, we get the castle gate key to unlock the front door of the castle. We're finally able to get inside the main portion of the castle. Finally. Once we get inside, we get a cutscene where we get to meet the next bad guy that's going to cause us problems. This is little Napoleon Salazar. This dude is like 3 feet tall, and he's only like 20 or something, but he looks like he's 60. I don't know what happened to this man, but he didn't age well. He tells us that we're getting in the way and that he won't let us leave the castle because he's going to kill us both or something. He has these two really large creature things with him, and they're definitely his bodyguards because he's not a threat with his size. Once he's finished talking, he decides to just leave and we can play again. The next area is something straight out of a Saw franchise. We stumble across this man that is chained up in a prison cell that has his eyes sewn shut. This dude uses his hearing to figure out where we are and will charge us doing massive damage. The best way to deal with this is to not move, use the bells in the area to get him to run in the wrong direction. He has this opening in his back that we need to shoot in order to kill him, so we have to get him to look the other way to get a good shot on it. We break into the cell and he breaks free from the chains and charges us with his Wolverine claws. This would be scary if you didn't expect it to happen. In our first attempt at this, we get caught by his swinging attack, and yet again we get our head cut off and we die. This happens to me way too often in this game. The next attempt at this goes a lot better than the first one. We're able to get him to look away from us for a majority of the fight. We kill him and then we grab our 15,000 gold and we unlock the door to advance further into the castle. We pull the lever that's in this cell and it turns off the fire that we couldn't pass before in the hallway. If it feels like I'm leaving out big parts of the game, I'm cutting out a lot of things because it's mostly combat, and at this point the combat is pretty much the same no matter where you are. I wanted to point out the next part though, because there is a bunch of enemies that attack us and they keep coming, it feels like. I like that they carry around shields and stuff. I used fire grenades in this part because it really helped with getting rid of the wooden shields. At the end of this area, we have to help Ashley up to an area we can't get to and protect her while she raises the ground that was lowered into the water. The enemies try to fight us and they also try to grab her and take her away. This part takes a while because she goes really slow when raising the platforms, so I felt like it overstayed its welcome. But overall it was nice to make Ashley feel important while getting through the castle. Once she's done, we help her back down because she cannot jump down like 6 feet, and then we cross over the platforms into the next room and get another cutscene. Ashley starts to cough up blood from the virus and then decides to run away from us even though Leon is just trying to help. When she runs forward, a bunch of spikes come out of the ground and she has to avoid them, which she's athletic enough to do that. This girl makes me so angry. When she gets to the wall, she leans against it and is captured by these metal things that come out of the wall. And then the whole wall spins around and takes her out of the room we're in and into another one. Salazar calls us and tells us that he is going to get her and take her away. So we have to find a way to get to the other room and save her again. Is anyone keeping track of this yet? That's the end of chapter 3 part 1, and we died a total of 9 times in this part. Mostly from the catapults because I was trying to rush through that part. We have to head into the sewers and we come across a new enemy. These giant bug things that can go invisible for some reason. They're not that hard to deal with, but man are these things annoying. There's always a ton of them when you run into them and they like to jump at you when you can't see them. I was able to deal with the first one because of my 6th sense for video games. Once we get through the sewer, we have to go through this part where we have to avoid these crazy swinging blades. This part is easy, but I really like that they added this in. Why did these exist in this castle? I want to meet the architect that decided to include these in the blueprints. When we get back to the main room of the castle, there are a bunch of cult members doing some sort of goat blood sacrifice or something. I don't really know what is happening. Once we get out of the cutscene, we have to swing across a chandelier again. All the cult members are just watching us from below because all the doors are locked. Going further into the castle, we run into this area where we have to jump down. A cult member that has the key to unlock the door runs away from us to the area we were just in. We have to catch him and kill him before he gets back to the bottom of the area we came from, or something bad will happen. I caught up to him and shot him and thought I killed him, but I was wrong. He gets to the bottom and somehow he's able to bring up this massive mounted machine gun from the floor. And this thing will do a ton of damage to us. And you really can't move when he's shooting at you. It's really bad. Look how when I get caught in it, I can't move until he's done shooting. We're able to survive though and head back upstairs to get a better shot on him to kill him. After a few shots from the rifle, we take him down, and we can go down there and pick up the key to unlock the door to the next room. In the next room, we have to solve this puzzle with pictures. To solve this puzzle, we have to flip the pictures that only 6 people are showing in all 4 pictures. When you flip a picture, another one will flip as well, causing the pictures to change and not have the right amount of people showing. This wasn't a bad puzzle, but it's more trial and error than anything. It takes us a few minutes, but we're able to complete the puzzle and the wall shifts to reveal a new door. And we can move into the next area. In the next area, we get a cutscene with our friend Salazar, and he goes on about how we're not going any further into the castle because it's not Leon that he needs, but Ashley, so we can just die. We find out that he has the parasite, but he claims that he's in complete control over them, unlike the other villagers that have the same parasite. Leon then calls him a puppet and tells him he's going down before a bunch of cult members show up to try and kill us. Salazar leaves and we're left to kill a bunch of cult members in this tiny room. They have crossbows and will just wait for us to come out into the open to shoot us. I really like this part because it felt like I was in actual trouble and could die at any moment. Around the room are switches we have to hit in order to get to the chest in the middle to unlock the door so that we can chase after Salazar. But we have to find them all and turn them all off. Each one causes something different to happen in the room. The first one raises the floor to reveal a chest, and some will slide out walkways to get to that chest. After turning switches, the cult members will show up in random places with RPGs and fire them at you. This usually isn't a problem because they're pretty slow in firing, but after turning off one of the switches that were under a pot in a side room, we came back out to the main room and there were 2 ready to fire at us. If I wouldn't have went back into the room, I think I would have for sure died. Look how close this was. But once they missed, they don't have any weapons, so we can pop back out of the room and take them down with no problem. And head over the chest to collect the goat ornament to open one of the main doors in the castle. We need another one in order to do that, but we got this part at least. After collecting the ornament, the door opens up and we find ourselves in a hedge maze in the courtyard of the castle that holds 2 moon pieces that we need to collect in order to unlock the door to get back inside of the castle. Salazar calls us and tells us that he has a surprise inside of the maze and that they're super hungry. And then he does this dumb laugh and hangs up. Once we go down into the maze, we find out what his surprise is. It's mutated wolves hiding in all of the areas of the maze. They're super easy to take down at this point, but the fact that one can show up at any time is pretty spooky. I'm not even gonna lie about that. Some of them can be taken down before they escape their cage if you sneak up on them from the right direction. I did this a few times and I think it made this part a bit easier. After searching the maze, I found out the pieces of the moonstone are sitting on 2 different fountains. We find the left half first on a fountain, and then up some stairs sitting on another fountain we find the right half. Now we can put them back together and head back to the door to go back inside of the castle. Once we connect the moonstone and unlock the door and walk inside, we get a cutscene that shows Leon walking inside of the room, and all of a sudden a handgun is put into his back. It pans out and we find out that it was Ada Wong that has the gun to our back. We're able to knock the gun out of her hands and draw a knife on her, because Leon is really good at stuff like this when it matters. After talking to her for a minute, we find out that she's working for Wesker, and she throws her glasses on the ground, which somehow turns into a flashbang. I don't know how this would work, but it's pretty cool. She grabs her gun and escapes out of the window again. I really like this cutscene even though nothing really takes place in it. That ends Chapter 3 Part 2, and we didn't have any deaths in that section of the game. Now time to move on to Chapter 3 Part 3. Once we can play as Leon again, we're able to buy stuff from the merchant, and I decided that I was going to buy the semi-auto rifle. Which I'm really happy I decided to make this choice, because some of the things that happen later on would be so much harder with a weaker rifle that shoots way slower. So I think I made the best decision in this moment. After exploring for a bit, we run into this room that is actually a trap, and a giant steel cage falls from the ceiling. Then a bunch of enemies storm in, including Darth Maul and the Saw Trap Man from before. This is like some fever dream of a WWE match or something. Winner gets the chest in the middle of the cage. The hard section of this part is that the Saw Trap Man is very close to us the whole time, and we have little space to move around in. I wish I would have known that I could kick the door of the cage open, but I guess it kind of made me a better player to fight them in the cage and not just in the room. After successfully killing everyone in the room and escaping from the cage, we move further into the castle on our way to try and save Ashley. In the next area, we run into the mutation of the cult members. These mutations kind of look like facehuggers from Alien, and after you kill the host, they'll run and jump at you. So we have to make sure we double tap them before moving on. They're not that hard otherwise, but I thought I should point it out since it's a new enemy in the game. I also found my own RPG in a glass case that I was willing to give up some flash grenades to make room for. If you only knew how long I carried this thing with me and worked around my inventory just in case I needed it for some really strong enemy or boss fight, it would drive you crazy. When I got to the next merchant, I had enough gold to upgrade my weapon case again, so I got the XL one, and I have a ton of space for items now. Even though I almost always had this thing full throughout my playthrough of this game. We continue further into the castle, and we get one of the most heartbreaking cutscenes in the game. Leon walks into the room, and Lewis catches up to us, letting us know that he has the vaccine for us. And in that moment, he gets a giant tentacle driven through his stomach, and the vaccine is taken from him. That tentacle comes from no one other than Sadler, the man in the purple cloak. He does not want us to have that vaccine, but doesn't much care if we're alive or not at this moment. Before Louise dies, he's able to give us some pills for the parasite. It won't cure us or anything, but it will slow down how much they affect us. He's such a good guy, but in the end he wasn't able to make it through it all and loses a ton of blood and dies in Leon's arms. What a moment to throw at us when nothing was really going on at all. That ends Chapter 3, Part 3, and we only died once in that area. I think it was my first attempt at the cage fight, which I wasn't expecting, so it became a beatdown. Anyways, on to Chapter 3, Part 4, which has some interesting things that take place in it. The part starts with us being on the second floor of the room that Ashley is trapped in, and we have to use our rifle to shoot the metal traps off of her without harming her. Which this is pretty easy, but when we finally get her free, a bunch of cult members show up to get her, and we have to kill them until she can make it over to the door and get out of the room. My issue with this part is that we went through so much and finally get here and set Ashley free, and then the cult members decide to show up. What have they been doing this whole time? Why wouldn't they come get her as soon as they could? I don't understand the logic behind that. Salazar is one of the dumbest people in the game because he had so much time to capture and do whatever he needed to do, and Leon wouldn't have been a problem at all. Before I get too much into the tangent, let's move on. The next section has us playing as Ashley, which I really like this part. The fact that we don't have any of our items and she isn't a badass like Leon changes the way that we have to deal with enemies trying to get to us. In this first area, we can lock them out by shutting gates and crawling into some areas, and you can also throw fire at them and burn them to death, which is the way I decided I was going to handle this situation. After exploring for a bit, we find a puzzle piece square and then find this next major puzzle in the game. This is one of those puzzles that has you slide pieces to get the image to look correct. And this was actually a bit challenging because you have to shift 4 pieces to get one piece in place. I was able to get it and then add in the piece that we found to solve the puzzle. This opens a door and we're able to go into the room filled with armor sets and come across the Salazar family insignia, which I think we were going to need in the near future. We also grabbed this serpent ornament that we'll need to unlock the main door, so one more piece to go. After taking the insignia and ornament, however, some of the armor sets come to life and try to kill us with these giant axes, which for the first one, I had to let it happen. 1, because I wanted to see what it looked like, and 2, because of all the hassle that Ashley causes me when I'm playing as Leon. So this was a planned death. At the end of the area is this Dally's thing that sort of looks like a speak and sound kid's toy that we need to put the Salazar insignia in so that we can get out of this area. After turning it, it causes the wall to raise up, and there is a ladder that surprisingly Ashley can climb up. She is actually able to do it. After getting out of this area, we're able to finally reunite with Leon, and the items we're carrying get transferred into his inventory. We embrace with a giant hug, so it's supposed to be endearing, but I feel like it's just pretty normal. That ends Chapter 3, Part 4, so it's pretty short, but I like that it changed up the gameplay for that section of the game. This takes us into Chapter 4, Part 1. We're in the second from last chapter of the game now. We only died once in that section because of letting Ashley die on purpose. When we opened up Chapter 4, I decided to backtrack to get a treasure that I needed Ashley to get, which ended up being a good choice because we got the broken butterfly. This is a magnum pistol and it does a massive amount of damage, but the ammo is very limited, so we have to save as much of it as we can until we need it. After doing that, I went to the area to advance the story, and we have to ride this really strange gear cart thing over some lava to another room. Leon decides that leaving Ashley here is a good idea, even though she's been kidnapped like 10 times now, but he's a professional, so I'll take his word for it. When we enter the room, we get this little scene that shows up the room and where we need to get, but the whole time I was thinking how it just reminded me of a Legend of Zelda room. And we were going to have to solve the puzzle to get to the other side. In this area, a bunch of cult members attack us, and we have to take out the ones controlling the fire that the dragons are blowing out. The fire does a massive amount of damage, so we have to deal with it quickly. The other enemies in the area are easy, but it doesn't pay to kill them all because you're just wasting ammo for your guns. Once we take out all the enemies we need to, we can go open the chest at the other side of the room and get the lion ornament, which is the last one we need to open the main door. We take this fancy train car as a shortcut back to the entrance of the castle, and then we can get to the main door and put in all the ornaments we've been collecting during the last chapter. We add the lion, the goat, and the serpent, and this causes the wall to go down, opening up a brand new area of the castle for us to explore. After a lot of nothing happening, we get to this room that has the King's Grail in it. We need this, I think, or maybe it's for greed, but once we go to take it, an evil voice talks to us and gives us another chance to not grab it. I decided that I wanted it, so I grab it and get attacked by a bunch of armor sets that came to life. These things take a ton of damage because of the armor, and when you finally break it off of them, the mutation comes out, and that's what we actually have to kill. This part was actually really hard, and I wasn't trying to use all my ammo on it. Once we kill them all, the door opens back up, and we can leave and head back the other way. We find Salazar again in this random room, and he's just sort of standing in the middle of the room being a weirdo. He tells us we lived long enough, uses his magic powers to close the door behind us, and then the ceiling grows spikes and starts to drop down slowly. Salazar runs out of the room giggling, and we have to escape. When we walk towards the door that he left out of, it closes, and now we're fully trapped in the room. This is easy to get out of. All we have to do is shoot the glowing red gems on the ceiling. Once we shoot all 4 of them, the ceiling will stop dropping and we can leave the room. After escaping this room, we head down the final hallway and end up in this big room that has a giant egg sack or something hanging from the ceiling. We can shoot it from the outside of the room, but I don't know if this does any damage or if we can destroy it before entering the room completely. But I took some time to shoot at it for a bit anyways. Once I'm done trying that, we jump down into the room and get another cutscene. This cutscene is really neat and shows the screen red as if we're watching from someone's eyes. And sure enough, that's exactly what happens. It's one of those bugs from before, and it flies in and kidnaps Ashley for the 400th time. Leon tries to save her, but the bug flies off with her, and then we get to see that under the area has a bunch of bugs ready to fly up and take out Leon. We take care of them with little to no problem, shoot down the egg sack completely this time, and it drops 1,000 gems for us to collect. We can sell all of these for gold, so I'm actually happy about this. More gold means more upgrades. Once we pick up all the gems, we have to shoot the drawbridge down by destroying the metal pieces that hold it up. This takes us down a path that leads us outside to a clock tower. When we get out there, we get a call from Salazar, and he asks us if we can see him. Leon then tells him if he lays one hand on Ashley that he will regret it. Then we get a cutscene where Leon watches Salazar and his goons walking Ashley into a building across the way. We have to figure out how to get over there and decide that going into the clock tower is the move. Once inside, we have to destroy these pieces of wood that are causing the gears to not spin, so we have to go up and down the clock tower, taking them all out. Once we do, we can pull the lever at the top of the tower to get the gears moving, and it turns the platform outside, so that now we can cross over into the building that Salazar was leading Ashley into. It also takes the gate up in front of the door so we can get inside. Once we exit the clock tower, we get attacked by a bunch of cult members on the bridge, but this isn't really notable because it's easy and nothing happens. Once we kill everyone, we can enter the next building and get into a new area of the castle, and a pretty interesting part. When we enter this area, we're greeted with two of the Saw Trap men, at the same time with a bunch of cult members as well. This part was actually really difficult because dealing with both of the Saw Trap men at the same time causes some problems. I ended up dying on my first attempt at this part because of them both attacking me at the same time. The room is large enough to run around in, but trying to get them looking away from us with other enemies around can be a challenge. On my second attempt, I was able to get them to fight me one at a time, and that made this much easier. The positive to this section was the enemies drop us medical spray and ammo, so I was able to stock back up for the next part of the game. Let me know if you struggled on this part when playing through the game in the comment section below. I'd really like to know how you handled this part. Once we enter the next room, we get a cutscene where Salazar and his two goons have Ashley, and we're prepared to get her back. Once Salazar talks to us for a minute, he hits a red button that causes the floor to drop out from underneath us. This puts us in one of those QuickTime events, and we have to save ourselves using like a grappling hook. I didn't even know we were holding an item like this. To let Salazar know that we're safe, we shoot his hearing horn, and he gets up and throws a tantrum like a small child. He's stomping his feet and mumbling under his breath. He's a grumpy little guy. Then he sends one of his goons to attack us. When we come back to playing as Leon, we're in the sewers again, but this time it looks like a more modern water system compared to the one we were in earlier in the game. Pretty gross that we have to walk around the sewer water though. As we get further into the sewer, we get this cutscene that shows something's vision, and it's lurking in the sewers with us. Its vision is red, and it's moving quickly. There is an old elevator that we need to use to get out of here, but there isn't any power to it currently, so we have to search the rooms around us until we find a lever that will activate the power for the elevator. We find it and pull the lever, and the door in the room closes. This was the beginning of one of the hardest fights in the game. Or at least that's what people in my chat were telling me when I was playing. The goon that was with Salazar has caught up with us and he's trying to kill us. He mainly crawls around on the ceiling and will drop down to attack us. We have to hit the right button combination so that we roll out of the way or he'll do massive damage to us. This part is pretty simple. Eventually he'll drop down and walk around. This thing is super ugly and quite large as well. The idea of this section is that he's too fast to shoot traditionally, so we have to use these CO2 tanks to freeze him in place so that we can do some damage to him. It only gives you a short window, so we have to knock over the tank and then get ready to shoot it with our most powerful weapons. I don't think we have to kill him because it tells us we just have to wait 4 minutes until the power for the elevator is ready, but I didn't test that theory while playing the game. I decided that I wanted to kill this thing. And I was able to get that done by using our shotgun. He explodes and we're able to grab the crown jewel and head over to the elevator. Once we get on the elevator, we get a cutscene with Sadler and a person that we haven't met yet. He's working with Sadler and we find out that he has a history with Leon and that he's willing to kill him. At this point, we haven't ever met him and we don't know his name right away. That ends chapter 4 part 1 and we only died twice in that section. I can't really remember what the second death was, but one of them was in the room with the two Saw Trap guys. So I'm assuming the other one was the first attempt at that boss fight. On to chapter 4 part 2, which opens up with us in this mining area. This place has a bunch of mining carts, equipment, and even explosives. We're back to facing villagers again, which is a nice change since we've been only fighting the cult members for a while. Once we leave the first area of the mine, we get to this area with a massive lava pit under a bunch of metal. I don't really know how this all works, but I'm not questioning it. This starts another boss fight, and this one wasn't hard, but took some time to take down both bosses. Two of the ogres enter the room like the ones we fought way earlier in the game. We have to kill them both. The first one is easy to take care of. We just have to get him to stand on the metal plate in the middle of the room and pull the lever to open it. He will fall into the lava, and then he'll die. So this is the easiest way to take care of one of them and make it a one-on-one fight. Once you use the lever once, however, you can't use it again to take out the other ogre. So we're going to have to just shoot this one until it dies. I found that the easiest way to do this boss fight was to climb the ladder on the one platform and zipline to the other side of the room. Once we land on the other side, we shoot the ogre until it charges us. Then we jump out of the way and do it all over again until he finally goes down. Like I said, this isn't a hard fight by any means, but it does take a while to do enough damage to kill the second ogre. Just like before, once the ogre's health goes down, the mutation comes out of his back, and we have to shoot it directly to kill it. After using a bunch of ammo for all of my weapons, we take him down using the semi-auto rifle. It was a long fight, but I was finally able to get him down. The ogre falls to the ground dead, the door opens up so that we can advance, and then we're able to pick up 15,000 gold off the ground. I wonder if people have tried just shooting both of them to death. I wonder how hard that would make this fight. After leaving that area, we enter some caves that have a million of those bug things. I think this part happens for the sole fact of restocking on ammo, because a lot of them drop ammo for all different types of guns that we have. We have to find a key to unlock the door to leave, but it sort of feels like an afterthought to the real reason we're in the cave. Once we get through the door, the next part has us going through more traps. We have to run down a hallway that has these massive rocks dropping down and going back up, and we have to time our movements so that we don't get smashed by them and die. I don't think this is all that hard, but yet again, who made this? Was the purpose of this protection? I don't really understand the placement and purpose of some of these traps in the game. Once we get to the top of the area, we grab the royal insignia from the top of an old coffin shrine thing, and then we're able to raise it up like a lift or something. I don't even know how this works, but it ends Chapter 4 Part 2, and we can move on to Chapter 4 Part 3. We had no deaths in that section, and I felt pretty good about that. Chapter 4 Part 3 opens up with us going underground again in an area that looks like people live in or something. It has like a rock house and lanterns placed around. But the thing I wanted to point out is that there is a man with a chainsaw upstairs in this sand house, and I can shoot him through the window, but he will not come down and try to kill me. He's just running around in a circle by the window doing nothing. This made me laugh because it's so broken. It's a bit hard to actually land any shots, so I eventually went inside and killed him, but it was funny to watch this while I was streaming the game. The next part of the underground has us getting onto 3 minecarts and going down the track to get down to the end of this area. We have to shoot the levers to get the carts to continue moving when the villagers turn them off. So we have to focus on the levers, but we also have to focus on people that line up around us, and they'll try to jump down into the carts with us. The best way to prevent this from happening is to shoot them once so that they fall off where they're standing, and the cart will run them over. This gave me some enjoyment because it's silly and not scary. This part also requires us to either shoot out pieces of wood, or they'll take us out if we hit them. It will also give us a button combination that we can hit that will allow us to just duck under them, and then we can pass. I think if we needed to save ammo, it would make sense to just duck under them. I found that the little machine guns was the most helpful in this part, and also the shotgun if they did manage to get on the cart with us. I think the main enemies to worry about in this section are the men with the chainsaws that try to jump into the cart with us. They can one-shot kill us if we're not careful, and they take way more shots to kill. At the end of the ride, the track isn't finished, so we have to jump from the cart over this massive gap to survive. I wasn't expecting this the first time though, and I died during that part, but the second time I was able to do it, and then had to mash the A button to pull myself up so I didn't die. We grab this stone of sacrifice, and we get out of this death trap of an area. We head to the area at the beginning of Chapter 4 Part 3 to open the door. We get there and we offer the stone to the Lion of Sacrifice so that we can unlock the door and advance further. Once we do this, there is a lift waiting for us, and we take it up somewhere, and that ends Chapter 4 Part 3, and we can move on to Chapter 4 Part 4. I feel like a lot of Chapter 4 is small sections that just take a bit of time to complete. We only died once in this section, and it was not making the jump at the end of the mine tracks. Oh well, I guess. The next part opens up with us running into a giant robotic statue thing of Salazar. If this man doesn't have little man syndrome, then I have no idea what else you would call this. We have to switch levers in 2 areas around it to have the arms move up and down and left and right to get across from side to side. While doing this, the cult members make a return and are trying to kill us. They're not smart though, and will just walk on the edge so that we can shoot them once and they'll fall. And we don't have to deal with them anymore for a while. Once we get to the top section, we can pull our last lever and it will raise the ground from the water so we can get across this massive pool of water to the next section. This also causes a bunch of enemies to attack us, but they're no real issue when we can cross the water. However, when we start to move across the area, the giant statue of Salazar comes alive and begins to chase us. This isn't anything we haven't done before, just have to mash the A button so he can't keep up with us and dodge the falling pillars as he knocks them over by hitting either the L or R buttons and run to the other side. Pretty scary moment though. Once we get to the end, we have to shoot the lock off the door so we can get out. Salazar is still chasing us, so we have to be quick about it. Once we shoot the lock off, we can open the door and leave the area. We're finally safe. Or at least I thought we were safe. The Salazar statue breaks down the wall and continues its pursuit of us. We have to do the same thing again, but across this big bridge this time. He eventually falls over and breaks the bridge, so we have to jump to the edge and pull ourselves up so we don't fall and die. I don't know why, but I really like this section of the game. It's very simple, but it made me feel like we were in extreme danger or something. Top tier section for this game. When we enter the next area, we get a cutscene that Salazar talks about how Ashley will become one of them and become super powerful. Leon calls him a terrorist and then throws a very accurate knife across the room and stabs his hand against the wall. His other goon grabs it and throws it back at us, and we have to dodge it so that we don't die. Then Salazar runs in the elevator while crying, and they both escape from us. When we can play as Leon again, we have to climb this tower by following this path around the edge of the room. There are parts where we can drop barrels on the enemies to take them out, which saves us a ton of ammo again, which is always helpful. Once we get to the top of the tower, we come across this really strange thing on the wall, and when we get closer, we get another cutscene and our next boss fight. When we enter the room, Salazar is performing a weird ritual in front of what looks like some sort of plant thing, and then he goes on to tell us that Ashley was taken to another island and we're too late to help her. Then the plant thing absorbs him into this gross monster, and for some reason it decides it needs to consume his last goon to become stronger or something. After he gets absorbed, this long tongue creature comes out and it looks like some sort of alien. I have no idea how you would explain this. It has one eye, and if you didn't understand from that cutscene, it was going to be our target for the boss fight. The gates fall down, and we're now stuck in the room with this thing. Then the boss fight starts. This boss fight is very simple for it to be this late in the game. All we need to do is shoot the creature in the eye, and then Salazar will pop out of the top, and we can shoot him to do some damage to the actual boss. There are 2 layers to this arena, and it will help us from getting hit by his powerful strike. If you drop down there, these mutations will attack us while we're down there, so we have to balance ourselves between being up and down. The main boss will swing his arms at us, and we can dodge them if we hit the buttons at the right time, so this part isn't all that hard. Then he does this attack with his mouth that we have to jump down to avoid or hit the right button combination, and if we don't, it grabs us and eats us, so we die immediately. So that's the only thing that we actually need to avoid during this fight. In the first attempt at the boss fight, I was caught in that attack and died. This happened to me more than once, so I wasn't the greatest at this boss fight. When Salazar is exposed, he looks completely different and sort of reminds me of Frieza from Dragon Ball Z. He's super weird looking. I thought I was getting somewhere and I wasn't paying attention, and he ate me again. On to the third try at this boss fight. Then on the third attempt, I was trying to use the shotgun, and yet again he ate me. I'm not doing well with this fight at all. I don't know why I couldn't see when he was about to attack, because when I'm editing this, I noticed it every single time. On the next attempt, I decided to use the Magnum when Salazar came out, and it seemed to work so much better, it didn't take much time at all to take him down. Once we land the final blow, nothing really happens. There isn't a crazy cutscene or anything. The creature just falls down and it dies. Then the door opens up for us to leave the room. I would have wanted more for this boss fight since we chased him around for 2 chapters of the game. I guess this was a missed opportunity. Anyways, we leave the room and head further into the game. We end up at the end of this hallway and come across a boat in the water that Ada Wong is driving for whatever reason. We get another cutscene where we think we're going to have to deal with her, but instead she tells us that she can take us over to the next island, where Ashley is being held. Leon, being the savior, he decides to agree to this, and we head over to the next island of the game. That's the end of Chapter 4, Part 4, and we only died 3 times in that part, which were all during the boss fight. So we didn't do too bad. On to Chapter 5, Part 1, which is the beginning of the final chapter of this game. We're almost done with Resident Evil 4. Chapter 5 starts with a phone call from Sadler where he tells us we're not going to kill him and we shouldn't be too overconfident. When we get to play as Leon again, we have to clear out this fortress to move around these laser things to unlock the door to get further into this rock city or prison. I don't know what it is. This isn't all that hard, but it is another puzzle. But before you can really do anything with the puzzle, we have to kill a really large man with a minigun. He's not that bad, but when he shoots, he does massive damage. We move the reflectors and unlock the door after taking care of everyone. We unlock the door and enter what looks like some sort of bunker or something and come across a brand new enemy. He sort of looks like a prisoner wearing a mask or something. I like that this late in the game, we're still getting new enemies to fight. They're a bit stronger than the cult members, but I really like the change. As we continue into the bunker, we come across a kitchen or something, and a person blows up an oven and dies. Once we deal with that guy, we come across another new enemy, which is a rejected football player. He has these massive spike shoulder pads, and he has a Terminator headpiece on. I don't know what happened when they were designing these parts of the game. Finally, we get another cutscene where we see a security center that shows us the cameras around the area. We see that Ashley is okay and is put into some prison cell, and then the zombie guy turns off the camera so we can't see what is happening. Leon decides that he needs to find where she is, and quickly. So that's what our plan is. As we're making our way to find Ashley, we come across this medical bay that has this weird looking creature lying on the bed. It appears to be dead, but it zooms in on it, so I'm not sure what they mean by it. Anyways, we have to enter the bigger medical bay, and it requires us to solve another puzzle to unlock the door. This puzzle has us moving red, green, blue, and yellow panels so that the moving arrows get from the top of the machine to the bottom of the machine. This is a very easy puzzle. We just have to turn arrows and see which way they flip. Then the arrows will move so we know what we're doing. Anyways, after a few seconds, we solve the puzzle and the door unlocks so we can go into the larger medical bay. Collect the freezer card key, so now we have to find the freezer to get the item inside of it to unlock another door. After collecting the freezer card, we turn around and that creature that was laying on the bed is trying to kill us. This is the most annoying enemy in the whole game. This thing has to be shot in specific spots of its body to kill the ticks that are inside. If you don't kill them, then it grows its body parts back and it continues to track you down. The issue right now is that we have no way of seeing where the ticks are located in the body or how many there are. They hit decently hard as well, so we have to continue to avoid them until we figure it out. For this one, I just shot it until I got lucky and it eventually died. When we get into the freezer using our newfound key, we find the waste disposal card key, and then we can make the choice of thawing out the freezer to get an item that is locked behind a frozen door. And I decided I wanted to do this, so we get an attachment called the infrared scope. This can be added to the rifle, and it shows us where the ticks are located in the body of these annoying creatures. Once we get it, however, one of them comes to life inside the freezer, and we're locked inside until we kill it. With the new weapon, it's much easier to deal with, but since they're always moving, sometimes it looks like I was hitting the tick things, but it wouldn't register that I was hitting it. I found this to be pretty annoying. Alright, let's move on to the waste disposal area because these things are making me angry. When we enter the waste disposal area, we get to use this machine that is exactly like a crane machine. I don't know why this was added in the game, but for some reason they really needed a crane machine in the game. This allows for us to pick up one of the guys in the room and drop them off into this massive drop-off. It only lets you do it once. Someone at Capcom went through the effort of coding this, setting up the camera and stuff, for this to be used one time. One time! Finally, we come to the cell that Ashley is locked inside, but we have to take out 2 football players before we can get to the door. I decided to take them one at a time because they both didn't want to walk at me at the same time for some reason, and I figured it would work in my favor. We don't have the key to this door, so we have to go find it, which takes us down into another lab where the storage room card key is. This whole section was just playing find card keys. Sometimes I feel like Chapter 5 was an add-on that they didn't know what to do during the level parts, but had some boss fights ready for it. It's almost like they ran out of ideas to get from point A to point B, so they just threw random things out there and went with it. We go all the way back to the storage room where Ashley is being held captive, and we can finally save her and take her with us. That ends Chapter 5 Part 1, and we only died one time during this section, and I think it was one of those crazy creature things at some point, but I honestly don't remember. Anyways, on to Chapter 5 Part 2. Chapter 5 Part 2 starts out with us having to jump down into the waste disposal drop-off, but Ashley doesn't want to go. So Leon grabs her hand and they both jump down there. So we dropped that enemy guy down here and he died, but we jumped down here and happened to be fine, even though we landed on like a metal fence. I feel like Leon could survive because he's trained for this, but Ashley probably wouldn't be able to move after this, if she even survived the drop. I'm not wrong in assuming this, am I? Anyways, one of those creatures are next to us and we have to run away from it. This part isn't bad because we can lock them behind gates and kill them without much effort. Once we get through that section, we have to time this door lock with Ashley. It's like a countdown timer and we both have to pull the lever at the same time. It's not hard, but I did mess up the timing the first attempt at this. Once inside the next room, we get to do one of the weirdest things in this game. Ashley gets to drive this dump truck, and as she's driving, we're in the back killing enemies as they try to get onto the back of the truck with us. It's sort of like the minecarts, but on a much larger scale. I found this really fun, and it's just different. Towards the end of the tunnel, there is a switch we need to hit to raise the truck up to another level. So it's like a giant elevator, sorta. And it requires Leon to get off of the truck and switch it manually. While we're doing this, we have to protect Ashley as we climb up a ladder and pull the switch. I let Ashley die on the first attempt on accident during this because I didn't think they would go after her during this part for some reason. I guess I just wasn't really thinking about it. Once we get back on the truck, we raise up to the next level, or to a different tunnel. I don't know how you want to explain that. And then we have to do the tunnel chasing part all over again. I still really like this, and they even threw in some stronger enemies to deal with this time. When it looks like we're going to be able to make our escape, a semi-truck drives directly into us, causing Ashley to lose control and wreck the dump truck into the wall of a building, and we crash. After the crash, we get another cutscene, and there is a lot of information given to us in this one. So first we enter the room and Sadler is waiting for us. He begins to tell us how the parasites are growing in us and becoming stronger, and we only have a matter of time before it takes total control. Leon decides that he's hurt enough, so he charges Sadler, but Sadler, using the staff that he carries around all the time, can cause the parasites to react, and he tells us that we can resist them, but we can't disobey. And then he tells Ashley to come with him, and she becomes like possessed or something, and just casually walks towards Sadler. When Ashley passes Leon on the ground, he tags her with a tracking device that he casually throws on her back, even though he's in a bunch of pain. Then Ashley and Sadler leave, and the pain subsides, and we can play as Leon again. We find out a lot about Sadler and the parasites in this cutscene, and I really like this one. That ends Chapter 5 Part 2, and we only died once, which wasn't our death. It was actually Ashley dying during the dump truck part. Not too bad, though. On to Chapter 5 Part 3. Chapter 5 Part 3 opens with a bunch of cutscenes and QuickTime events. The first cutscene is of the man that was with Sadler, and we don't know who he is yet, and Ada Wong. He asks about Leon, and Ada tells him that we're not making it easy, and then he tells her that he doesn't trust her. Then once we gain control of Leon again, we move into a room with a bunch of pipes. Almost reminds me of like a steam room or something. Anyways, we're walking in, we get attacked by this man. And this is where we find out that his name is Jack Krauser. And he was the hired mercenary that kidnapped Ashley in the first place and brought her here. We get attacked from above, and even when we hit the QuickTime event correctly, he's able to cut our cheek using his knife. So then we get into a knife fight with Krauser. This fight is really good, but it took me forever to get the timing right in this cutscene. I don't really know why I struggled so much with this, but it took me a long time to get it right. This fight is basically like a Wild West standoff, but instead of having guns, we have knives. We talk during the whole exchange, but Krauser makes attempts at stabbing us multiple times. And even at one point, he kicks a barrel at us and then lunges, and all of these are just QuickTime events. It's a pretty interesting choice. Leon is able to get one slice at Krauser across his chest that rips his shirt, but that's about it because they're both evenly matched, or at least that's what it feels like. Krauser is able to knock us down using his strength, and we have to mash the A and B button so that we don't get stabbed in the face or the throat with his knife. And this goes on until Ada Wong shows up and shoots at him. I don't know if she saves us out of pity or what, but I guess we should be thankful for it. After shooting his knife out of his hand, Ada appears and Krauser shows off his bunnies and jumps from where we are into the rafters and runs off. We stand up and grab our knife, and Ada comes down where we are and asks if we know each other. Leon says you could say that and then wants Ada to tell him why she's there. You gave her a jerk answer and then you want her to give you answers. It doesn't work that way, my guy. She proceeds to leave the area, and we get a phone call from our best friend Sadler asking us how our meeting went. And then he tells us that he's been using him the whole time and it doesn't matter what happens to him. Sadler is the worst type of bad guy. He uses everyone that he meets for his own personal gain. The next area has us doing our best Mission Impossible action and avoiding lasers coming down at us down a high-tech hallway. This part is overall very simple, but I did manage to die in this section because I wasn't paying attention to the last one, and I just missed the button combination. I do really like that Leon ends this section by running up a wall and doing a backflip like he's some sort of action star or something, and because he didn't die from it, the door casually unlocks for us. In the next room, we sit on the throne because we are the king of the village now. All hail your new king, King Leon. We find the tracking device that we stuck to Ashley in a cave area, and then we are attacked by one of the ugliest creatures in this game. It's something that you would see in your nightmares, and I hate it. It has a human torso and bug legs or something. What happened to this? Anyways, we get knocked into this crate that has multiple sections to it, and we have to escape by hitting switches in each section to knock off that part that the creature is inside. Nothing really happens in this part besides avoiding the creature and shooting the lights to unlock doors so that we can get to the other section of the crate. This was a good lead into the actual fight. I felt like because it combined both combat and puzzles into the same event, that it was really enjoyable. Once we get to the last one, we activate the last piece to fall and it lowers a crane hook that we have to jump onto and swing to the other side. During this cutscene, the creature falls with it and we think we killed it, but using those bug legs, it crawls up the side of the wall and attacks us again. This time we have to just unload on it and run in this cave area to keep our distance. It's actually a very simple fight for this late in the game. I had so much stuff in my inventory at this point that I wasn't worried about the fight at all. I have the XL weapon case and it was almost completely full, which I felt pretty good about being this late in the game. We take out the boss and then it just falls over and dies, and we can just leave the caves now. The next major area is another boss fight with Krauser, but this time around we actually get to fight him while playing. And it's not just QuickTime events. It takes place in like this old sand village or something. It's run down and no one's around besides him. This fight was weird to get used to because he'll chase you down if you hide. I found that using the knife during this part actually made things a bit easier. At least it was better than wasting my ammo and trying to shoot him. So when he trapped me in areas, I just waited until he rushed me and then I would slice him with our knife. Who would have thought that this would be that useful towards the end of the game? After doing enough damage, he runs away and we go to the other side to collect items to unlock the gate so that we can leave after the fight. We get another cutscene with him circling us like before, and yet again we just have to wait for him to charge us and use our knife on him. At one point his hat comes off, which is interesting detail because it seems really random. We get the Holy Beast Panther, and then the gate comes down and we have to fight him until he runs away again. Then the gate will open back up and we can meet him on top of the village. It gives us a chance to respond, and I'm not sure if we can respond or what, and if it changes anything. So let me know in the comments if anything would change based on your decision here. We pick up the Holy Beast Eagle and then get the final cutscene with him, where he turns into this crazy mutated monster. He grows a parasite arm, which is basically a blade that he does pretty good damage to us with. He tries attacking us right away, and we have to hit some quick time events so we don't get knocked off the building and die. And then we find out that he's rigged everything with C4, and we only have 3 minutes to kill him. This is a lot of time, and you'll probably not need all of it, but it does make the fight more intense because we can't just avoid him the whole time. He uses his new arm as a shield, so we can't just shoot him in the head or the chest, so the best method here is to shoot at his legs, which will cause him to eventually stumble, and then we can get an opening to shoot him in the chest and head. I would say this fight isn't that hard as long as you keep pressing him. The more you run around and avoid him, the more he'll catch you and do damage. It took me about a minute and a half to take him down with this method, and after we get the final shot, he sort of just falls over and dies. Nothing dramatic takes place here. Now we have a minute and a half to pick up the items here and make it to the gate before the C4 goes off. So we go and grab the last holy piece, the serpent, and make our way to the gate. Once at the gate, we put in all the pieces, and with 40 seconds to spare, we can leave whenever we want to. When we do leave, that ends Chapter 5 Part 3, and we died 5 times in that section. I don't remember when we died that many times. Once to the creature in the crate, once to Krauser, and one to the lasers in the hallway, but I can't think of the other 2. Chapter 5 Part 4 opens with Sadler telling us he's happy we killed Krauser, and wants to know how he can show his appreciation for it. Sadler is such a good villain in my opinion. Leon comes across an area with a ton of enemies and is trying to figure out what to do when the helicopter shows up with my favorite side character in this game. His name is Mike. We don't get to see what he looks like, but it's amazing backup when we need him. He tells us he's going to help us out, and he knocks over a water tower that has gas in it, and then unloads on everything in the area with his machine guns, before he'll eventually shoot the tanker and he kills everyone around it. Leon thanks him, and we can move forward with Mike providing cover for us during the next few areas. Basically, he just clears out gas tankers in different areas so that we can advance. I love that this part was added in the game because it's so fun and it feels more like an action game than a survival game, which I think was a much needed change this late into the game. Further into the area, Leon finds himself in more trouble, and Mike comes to the rescue again. This time we get a super fun shot where everything's in slow motion and he takes everyone out. Leon tells him once we get out of here, drinks are on me, bud. And at that moment, Sadler shows up with an army man and shoots down the helicopter right out of the sky with an RPG. This was so sad. Mike was an amazing character. Let's all have a moment of silence for Mike. Thank you. Let's move on. Sadler immediately calls Leon to gloat about killing Mike. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry about killing him. I feel so bad about it. Leon pledges that he's going to be the next to die. We get a cutscene after this that has Leon freaking out from the parasites in his body, and he actually grabs Ada Wong when she shows up, and he's choking her out when she stabs him in the leg to get him to snap out of being all crazy. We come to, we take our last bit of medicine to control the symptoms, and Ada leaves, and we continue moving forward. We find ourselves in an old prison where there are a bunch of enemies, and in order for us to unlock the door, we have to take out a bunch of them to get the key that one of them locks the door with. There are a bunch of enemies, and in this part should be hard on paper, but where I was standing, I could shoot them back down the ladder, and the ones coming from the walkway, I could just shoot them with a shotgun until they were all dead. This shotgun really is the lifeline for this game. I love it so much. This is the best gun in the game. After unlocking the door, we head into this room where Ashley is hooked up to some machine, and we're finally going to be able to save her for the 50th time when Sadler shows up. Sadler shows off some of his skills here and hits us Doctor Strange style, causing our soul to come out of our body and we go flying into the machine. Sadler causes so many problems for Leon, and I love that he always does something different every time we encounter him. As we're on the ground, it looks like we're going to be killed. Ada shows up with a machine gun and unloads on him. It does hurt, but it's more like he's just annoyed by it. This gives us a chance to get Ashley out of the machine and run away from Sadler for the time being. Sadler is able to remove the bullets from his body by moving them into his hand and then dropping them on the ground. This is what full control of that parasite is. Being able to just recover from a full clip of a machine gun and just being angry about it. We run out of the room with Ashley and then Ada blows up some barrels to destroy the way so he doesn't follow us. She's actually been very helpful in this last chapter of the game. This is some sort of lab that we're in now, and after some searching around, we find a machine that is able to remove the parasites from our bodies. Leon goes first, and it works, but he's really risking it all here because this thing could have just killed him. He could have got on there, they could have turned it on, could have killed him immediately. End of the game. It doesn't mean the machine is all that easy for him though, because it looks like he's in a lot of pain as it's shocking him with like electric or something. I don't know how this removes the parasites, but apparently it does. During this cutscene, Leon and Ashley both seem to be in quite a bit of pain during the extraction. They hug it out after the fact, and that ends Chapter 5, Part 4, and we're now on the final part of the game. It's Chapter 5, Part 5, but the game just calls it the final chapter. Nothing really happens until we get to this construction site, and Leon is very suspicious of this area. So he tells Ashley to wait, and we use the lift to get to the top of the area. Once we get to the top, we find that Ada is tied up and is attached to a crane. And I bet you can't guess who's there waiting for us. It's Sadler again. He tries to control us like he did last time, but isn't aware that we no longer have the parasite. So this doesn't work. This makes him a bit angry. We throw a knife and cut down Ada to rescue her. Sadler transforms into this massive spider-like creature with these long legs, and his human torso sort of just hangs out at the bottom of his midsection. They just kind of dangles there. This thing is gross and very mobile. This boss fight is very simple, like most boss fights, even though it's the last one in the game. He has eyeballs that are exposed and we have to shoot them to do damage. This should be simple, but he moves fast, and he also likes to do this massive jump move that we have to dodge or it does a ton of damage. Once we shoot the eyes on his legs, this massive tentacle comes out of the middle of him, and it also has an eye. This is the eye that will eventually lead to killing him. I love his little rag doll body at the bottom during all this, because it's just swinging around like it means nothing. Anyways, if the tentacle grabs you, it will slam you down, causing a bunch of damage, and it is something to avoid if you want to stay alive during the boss fight. The method for this boss fight is to try to make some distance and then turn and shoot his eye, then wait till he lunges at us, avoid it, and then run to the other side of the area. We can also go over to the other side of the construction site, but he breaks the bridges as we are doing it, so we have to make sure we don't mess up the QuickTime events during this section, or we'll die. Throughout the area, we can operate these switches, and it will throw like metal girders, and if you can line it up, it's a good way to cause damage. I missed this one, but was able to cause a barrel to explode that was next to him, so at the very least I was able to get some damage on him. Once we get his health down enough, Ada will throw us an RPG with a tracking missile on it. I had my own RPG that I was carrying around for the whole game, it felt like, so I was determined I was going to use this one to kill him. Wouldn't you guess it, I shot it and it went underneath him and I missed. What a waste to carry that thing around all this time, and when I finally decided to use it, I missed. F in the chat. Anyways, after missing and making my walk of shame over to the RPG Ada threw down, I was able to pick it up and shoot him without missing and land the final shot we needed, killing Sadler once and for all. Sadler like melts or something, and then the vaccine for the parasite falls to the ground. Leon reaches down to get it, and Ada puts a gun to the back of our head. She got the best of us. She proceeds to take the vaccine from us and jumps off the construction site to land on a helicopter of her own to leave the island. She throws us the keys to a jet ski and tells us that the whole island is rigged with explosives, and we have 3 minutes to get Ashley and leave the island before we die. Ada played the long game with us, and she won. We don't have much of a choice, and we take the lift back down, tell Ashley we have to hurry, and run towards the water to get the jet ski. So we can finally get off this island before we both die. Once we get on the jet ski, we have about a minute and a half to get through this cave. This part shouldn't be hard, but for some reason I died on the first attempt. All we have to do is drive forward and avoid the rocks in the water, and the rocks that fall from the ceiling in the cave. It's pretty simple, right? There are also areas that we have to make sure we move to the left or right and don't just run into the wall and crash and die. I was going to cut this, but it's not all that long, so I'm going to just show the whole escape, because I think it's done pretty well. We get out with about 35 seconds left to spare. We had plenty of time. The island is already starting to blow up, but we're able to make it out and survive to live another day. Ashley does fall off, which I feel is pretty fitting for her character to not have the upper body strength to hang on while we're racing out against the waves. Leon circles around and helps her back on the jet ski. He really is a nice guy. As we're riding away from the island, Ashley suggests to Leon that once they get to her place, they should do some overtime. That's implying something else, but Leon, being the perfect gentleman that he is, declines the offer. Ashley does ask us about Ada, but Leon doesn't really get into it, and they ride off into the sunset. Then the credits roll, and we finished Resident Evil 4. We finally did it! Would I recommend this game? I wasn't sure what I was going to think about this game when I first started it. But after playing through it, I really liked it, and I'm super excited for the remake. I think it's a good idea to play the original first, but either way, I don't think you can go wrong. This might be in my top 10 GameCube games of all time now. But let me know what you think about it in the comments below. If you want to know what's next, stick around, but if not, thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe, like, and share this video, and we will see you in the next one. This is the one we need. Alright, so we got the random number generator up. We have 536. We have our list of games to pick from here. And on the count of 3, we'll figure out what we're playing next. So, 3, 2, 1. 288. What is 288? We're right by it. Oh, NASCAR Thunder 2003. That's pretty funny. So it is a NASCAR game. I don't know how we're going to go about doing this game, but NASCAR games are always fun. At least just to screw around with. But we'll see how I figure that out. But yeah, that's our next game. Some NASCAR Thunder 2003.